All right. Thank you all again for joining us today. Today is December the 12th, 2020 at 3 p.m.
We don't see a video.
Welcome to the International Association of Woodcarvers. Today we have a special guest with us. Mr. Ryan Olsen is going to be coming on with us in a few minutes to talk a little bit about his carving journey and answer some questions for us. Before we get into Ryan's portion of the meeting, I'll talk a little bit about some things that are coming up. We've had a little different change in plans as far as the schedule, so I wanted to run through that with y'all real quick. Next week, we originally had on Wayne Larimore on the schedule. Wayne's had some things come up, so we're going to have to postpone Wayne until January the 9th. So having said that, we've decided to do something a little different next week, and also next week will be our last meeting before Christmas, and also the last meeting for 2020. So we're going to do a couple different things. We're going to have kind of a discussion meeting next week where we talk about sharpening and maintaining tools. I know that's a hot topic for a lot of people that are getting new knives and new gouges and things and not sure how to maintain them, or if they drop and chip one or something like that. They want to find out how they can fix those tools and keep them in tip-top shape. So we're going to have a meeting with a few people on to discuss carving or discuss sharpening and maintaining tools. If any of you all have anything you want to add in that meeting, please feel free to do so. Again, we're going to have more of an open discussion than just a presentation next week, so plan on that. One other thing that we wanted to do, because it is the week before Christmas, we've got some special items that we're going to be giving away. So we're actually going to do like a Christmas giveaway to thank you all for the support. Thank you all for coming on week after week and supporting us through all this. Again, we've been doing this since April of 2020. And we thank you all for joining us each and every week. So we've got some special items we're going to be giving away. We're not going to talk about those right now. You have to be present to win. So everybody that's on the meeting next week will be put into a drawing, and we'll draw out those gifts and make sure we get addresses and send those out after the meeting next week. After next week, we'll be off on December the 26th. That's the Saturday after Christmas. We'll have Mike Pounders that's going to be coming on January the 2nd. Again, Wayne Larimore will be coming on January the 9th. And then we signed up John Overby, who's the flat plane carver that some of you know, that'll be coming on January 22nd. We have an opening spot on January 15th, if you know of anybody who'd like to present that day. And we'll be working to go ahead and schedule some people going into February. So that's the things we've got coming up. Again, next week we'll talk about sharpening and maintaining tools and do some giveaways. So make sure you join us next week. Having said all that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Ryan Olsen. Ryan is a CCA member coming to us from Utah. He's a teacher out there and a great wood carver, and he's going to go through his carving journey, answer some questions for us. And Ryan, we look forward to hearing what you have to say today.
Hey, thanks, Blake. It's good to be here. Actually, Blake, I'm from Idaho. There, not Iowa. The two are really different.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. Hey, it's great to be here, everybody. And if I go away for 20 seconds or 30 seconds, I've been noticing my phone's been dropping off. Don't panic. It'll probably come back. So I hope, can you all see me okay, Blake? You can hear me okay? Yeah?
Yeah, you're good. You're good, Ryan.
Oh, okay. Sounds great. Well, I just wanted to just kind of get going by telling you a little bit about myself. First of all, you got to know I am a high school teacher. I teach high schoolers, but I've found that high schoolers and wood carvers are about the same mentality. And so if I talk to you like I talk to my high school kids, it works out pretty well. Blake asked me to tell you guys a little bit about myself so you could kind of know where I'm coming from and a little bit about me. I'm an opera singer, and that was my big thing. That's what I studied. I spent probably, I'd say, 15 to 20 years of my life studying to become a professional operatic tenor, and I did sing professionally for a while and loved to do it. And so you'll probably hear me singing at some point today because I can't help myself. I sing every chance I get. Whenever I get an audience, I sing. Uh, I was in a class with Dave in Maquoketa, Iowa, and because I sing to my students every time I teach, and after I got done singing, Dave said, "Hey, I was going to ask you, do you need some stool softener? I heard some sounds coming from you." So anyway, you may hear me singing some opera today. I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I got started in wood carving, and a little bit about the beginning of my journey. I can still remember my very first exposure to wood carving was Chip Chats. And my dad brought me a magazine and plopped it on the table and said, "Take a look at this. These guys are doing some interesting stuff." And there was a picture in there. There was a Chris Hammock photo of his old gunfighter. And then I think there's a picture of one of Dave's caricatures of a guy leaning back up against a fence with a great big head like he used to do. And I looked at that, and man, I was just like, it just set something off inside of me. I was just, it's something in my DNA said, you want to do that. And so I got that interest there. And then I did a little bit more and more and more as I went along. So as I was getting my undergraduate degree at Utah State University in opera performance, I started wood carving. And I remember I went to like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever, and got myself a block of wood, probably way overpaid for some basswood, after I figured 2x4s weren't very good to carve. And then I was so excited because I got some of those snap off blades, and I started carving this wood with the snap off blades. And because they were always sharp, I mean, once it got dull, you could just snap it off and carve some more. And I just turned this hand into a carving post. I kept snapping, I'd carve and I'd push and I'd snap those blades off. And they, back then we didn't have money. And so, well, still don't, but back then we didn't have money. And so I went to we had an emergency room across the street. One time I cut myself so deep, I went and told the doctor there, "I don't have money to pay you, but can you tell me how to fix this? Because I have cut it really bad." And he helped me super glue it together. Anyway, that's how I learned on my own by myself. And for quite a while, I was doing that. I'd say years. I'd say a couple years. And I was pretty good with those snap off blades. And then I started grinding down some steak knives. I had a buddy that had some sharpening, so I was grinding down some steak knives. And I heard about this class that they were teaching at in Twin Falls called the Woodcarvers Rendezvous, and Dave used to teach there quite a bit, and that's where I got to meet him. But I went to this Woodcarvers Rendezvous, and I signed up for a class with this guy named Cleve Taylor. And I can still remember sitting in that class for the first time, because I've been trying to do it on my own, and hearing Cleve Taylor talk to the class. And for me, it was like crack cocaine. Not that I do crack cocaine, but it was like that. I mean, I just was so excited about what he was teaching. And then everybody in the class started making fun of my toolbox, and started making fun of me because I had a toolbox that was full of like I said, ground off steak knives. I had one of those old linoleum V tools that they use in printmaking, the cheap ones. When you push too hard, they bend. I had a couple of those like Harbor Freight tools that are made out of aluminum. I don't know, that you just can't sharpen. I had some of those, and I had some steak knives. I had my snap. I had some X-Actos with interchangeable. So everybody was making fun of me for what I was carving with, Cleve was leading the charge. And then they looked in my toolbox, and they saw in my toolbox, they saw in my toolbox that Blake, am I still going? I'm a little nervous that I'm talking to nobody. Am I still going?
No, you're good. We're just having a few people that were having trouble seeing you. So they're having to sign out, sign back in.
Can they see me okay now?
Yeah, I think you're fine.
Not too much glare off my forehead? Okay. So anyway, so they were making fun of my tools until Cleve came around, and he saw some of my carvings inside of my toolbox that I'd done. And he said, "Ryan," because he's from, where is he from? He's from Alabama, or anyway. He said, "Ryan, did you carve these?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You carved this head with those tools?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." He said, "Oh, no." And then he went over and he went to his toolbox, and he started fumbling around in his toolbox, taking out a bunch of tools. And I thought, what's he doing? Then matter of fact, I've still got them. I'm going to grab a couple of them because I still got them to remember. Here's one of them right here. He brought a bunch of his tools, and he plopped them down on the table in front of me. A bunch of these flex cut, I guess they're flex cut tools, and he set them down. He said, "You take those," and he gave me a whole set of tools. And then he went over and got me a knife from the knife vendor and came and said, "Here." And so it was really incredible. And then I sat through his class, and it was an awesome class. I've got the guy from this very first class. It was a Civil War guy, right here. This is a Civil War guy that I carved in that class. And actually, believe it or not, I carved the whole thing in that class. And it's got the head was separate. And gosh, at that time, I think I had finished my bachelor's degree. In opera, and and my master's degree in opera. Yeah, and I had moved back and to Idaho. And so anyway, we carved this in the class, and I just loved what I learned from Cleve. I learned so much. And if any of you don't know Cleve Taylor's work, look it up. I've got some books. He wrote a lot of books. Just an awesome wood carver. Here we go. Here's one of his books. Just cowboy caricatures. This is Cleve. And I think Tom's got some pictures that he may show you or may not. But anyway, this is Cleve. Really inspired me. I just talked to him just a little while ago. An incredible wood carver, an incredible individual, an incredible teacher. Anyway, so I carved this. I was so excited. And then I was walking out of the class, and I was leaving. I had the greatest. I remember I slept in the back of my car. At that point, I barely could scrape enough money together because I was a professional opera singer, and it's tough to make a living. And I had some kids, so I could barely scrape enough money together to be in that class. So I was sleeping in my car, and I just for the class, not always. I had a house, but on the way out, I was leaving, and this guy. I can't remember how old he was at the time. I had heard his name before. I didn't know him, didn't know much of him, came walking down the hall. And he had in his hands, he had a lot of his wood carving blanks from the class that he taught and his things. His name was Dave Dunham. And he stopped. I mean, he had taught for 5 straight days, probably, or no, it's 3. I guess there's 3 days. 3 straight days, probably exhausted at the time. He stopped and he just glimpsed my wood carving out of the corner of his eye, and he stopped everything. He set all of his stuff on the floor there, and he reached out and he grabbed my wood carving, and then he sat there and talked to me for probably about 45 minutes about my wood carving, telling me all the things that were great about it, telling me all the things that he loved about this wood carving. I get a little emotional because those kind of interactions with incredible people are things that I'm sorry, everybody. I love it. I just love this hobby. I love it. And I love the people. Were just absolutely incredible. And I'll never forget those guys. So anyway, that's how I got going. That's how I got started, was a couple people taking a moment, taking some time to stop and to share, and to take some time to encourage. And so that's how I got going in wood carving. And then I got fanatic about it, as I tend to do. I started carving when I was on the road performing, when I'd go away, because in opera, you go away for 2 weeks to learn an opera, to learn a role. And so I'd take wood with me, and I'd carve the whole time in motel rooms, keep me out of trouble. And I really got into wood carving that way, and was doing it a lot. But really, caricature carving, it goes right along with what I do. I mean, I'm an opera performer, and so my characters are larger than life, and my portrayals on stage were always larger than life. And so they kind of fit hand in hand. The bigger, opera's huge, man. You're on a big stage, you got a huge audience, everything's big and projected. And so everything's volume up, amped up, and so is caricature. I mean, caricature is amped up. It's like Tom Richmond says, caricature is portraiture with the volume turned up. And that is spot on, because that's what caricature is. It's portraiture. So that's a little bit about my journey, how I got really going. But there's a lot more to that story, a lot more to that. It involves things like at Utah State, taking a whole bunch of art classes and sitting for hours and hours drawing live models and in class. And it involves hours and hours of studying every bone in the human body and having to learn it. Hours and hours studying where fat lies with some great portrait artists and learning from some of the greats how to do portrait. That's all in there deep. And so if you see things you like in my carvings, chances are it comes from a really a heavy understanding of anatomy, a heavy understanding of what. Hello, did I lose you? A heavy understanding of what's there. So Blake, am I still good here?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, that's a little introduction to me. I'm going to sing a little bit for you. Blake said he wouldn't throw me off if I sing. So I'm going to sing just a little bit for you. Partirono le rondini dal mio paese freddo senza sole. You know, and singing, right? I believe music is tied very closely to caricature artists. It's crazy. Almost every caricature artist, carver I've ever met either loves to make music or loves music. So I think right there, the singing and the caricature are really close. Anyway, that's some things I wanted to share about myself to kind of get a knowledge of me, where I came from and what I'm doing. So, Blake, you got some questions. I asked you guys to send some questions that I could answer and think about, and I'd love to do that.
Yeah, let me jump into to probably the biggest one first. What's the most complicated carving you've ever done, Ryan?
Most complicated carving I've ever done. Probably there was a time that I thought I had recently just been inducted into the CCA or gotten into the CCA, and I wanted to pretend I was Marv Kaisersat. And Marv is known for his multi-figure scenes. I mean, he does out of one block of wood. If you haven't looked at Marv Kaisersat's pictures, and Tom, I don't know if we ever got the picture presentation figured out or not. If you did, this would be a cool time. If not, but Marv, what's that, Tom?
No, I couldn't get it going.
No worries at all. By the way, you don't have this book and you're interested in carving caricatures, get this. This is Caricature Carvers Bibles, Caricature Heads by Marv Kaisersat. I would dare say 50% of caricature carvers have it, and the other 50 should have it if they don't. But anyway, I thought I'm going to show you, see if Marv has any of his multi-figure scenes in this. I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a multi-figure scene like Marv. And we did let me get a picture here for you. We were doing this book in the CCA, carving, what is it? Can you see it? Carving a 1930s street scene. And I got the pleasure of carving with the great Steve Prescott. And we were in one of the CCA meetings, and he said, "You're carving with me." And I thought, okay, wow, I get to do a carving with Steve Prescott. And that was an incredible experience to get to do that with him. He called me, probably, we worked together pretty closely on this, and I'll bet you he called me 15 times. And sometimes we talked about the project we were doing. Most of the time we talked about carving, and he shared with me so many things that he does, that he thinks about, the things that Bolton had taught him, and the things that he had learned. I have some of his, sorry guys, I'm a tangent guy, and you'll have to just deal with it. Here we go. If you don't know Steve Prescott, study him. Here's one of his carvings he gave me. And this probably doesn't resemble his very best work. It was later in his life, an incredible wood carver and teacher. And yes, I'm off on a tangent, but that's okay. There's a book that Steve wrote. If you get a chance to get your hands on it, get it. Anyway, I was working on a thing with him. And we decided we wanted to do a gentleman's club. And I said, well, I want to do a barbershop quartet. And he kind of helped me come to that with my singing. He said, do it, carve what you know, carve what you love. Don't carve cowboys if you don't want to. So I did a barbershop quartet, and it's in this book. Let's see if we can see. Yeah, here we go. So there you go. I'll hold that up. I carved them all out of one piece of wood. So, and they're only probably about this tall, and carving them out of one piece of wood, that was complicated. Once you start doing multi-figure stuff from one piece of wood, that was complicated. So I'd say that was my most complicated piece that I've done. So Blake, what else you got? Questions?
So what is the best advice for a novice carver other than practice and learn to sharpen?
Okay. For a novice carver, somebody who's getting going, first of all, enjoy the journey. Enjoy every step of the journey, because you don't ever get that beginning part back. Once we think in our deluded minds, we think in our when we're starting something, boy, if I could just carve like that, then I'd be really happy. If I could just grab a block of wood and be able to do what he does, then I'd be really happy. That's not the case. It doesn't get any better than it is right now with you in the beginning stages. Those just being there in those, I call it like just those. It's the honeymoon stage of wood carving, when everything is so new, everything's fresh. Well, you guys remember your honeymoon. Anyway, it's great. I can still remember carving Santas when I was just learning with my X-Acto knives and sitting on the couch and showing my wife the carving like 30 times, saying, "Isn't this amazing?" And she'd say, "Yeah, it's really great, honey." I still have some of those around. They're rough, but in my delusional mind, they were incredible, and I enjoyed the journey. So number one, enjoy the journey. And then some of the other things I wrote down a little list of some things. These are things that I learned from singing at a high level that apply to carving. Don't take advice from anybody that hasn't done what you want to do. Don't take advice from anybody that hasn't done the thing that you're trying to do. That's pretty stinking important. A lot of people have a lot of opinions, and if they ain't done it, you don't need to listen to them. Small, short sessions are more effective for practice than long, drawn-out sessions. If you've got 8 hours in a week, you're going to learn more from 16 30-minute sessions than you're going to learn from 1 8-hour sessions. Small, short sessions. So if you have 10 hours a week to spend on this hobby, divide it up into small chunks, okay? Get rid of the critical voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough. We've all have judges in our heads, critical voices. Get rid of it. It's detrimental to you as an artist. It's detrimental to you as a carver. Get rid of your critical voice. Oh, my computer just shut down. Just a second. I'm going to plug this thing in. Another thing. Just a second here. There we go. Another thing that is take the time to learn from the best. So if you want to learn from the best, if you want to learn from the best. So seek them out, and it is worth every cent. It is worth every cent and every minute of your time. Why would you want to learn from inferior wood carvers? And there's some incredible wood carvers out there in every genre. Seek them out. I'm studying right now. I just got to spend 2 hours with Dave. He had this morning a class, and I learned a whole lot in that class. By the way, I'll bet you if it's caricature bust, I'll bet you he's already had 2 of them out of 6. I bet you if you sweet talked him and emailed him, I bet you he'd still let you in the class. Study with people that really get it. Here's one that's interesting for a young carver. And when I say young, I mean just getting started. When it's your voice as an artist, it's going to seem boring to you. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm going to say it one more time. When it is your voice, I mean, when it is you're saying something as a wood carver, to you it's going to seem boring because it's you. It's what you do. But that's you, and be you when you carve, which isn't always the most exciting. You may see another carver and say, oh man, I want to do that. Stick with you, stick with what you do. You are either getting better or you're getting worse. So which are you doing? You're either getting better or you're getting worse. Here's one to somebody just getting in. Your technique is going to change over time. Let it. Allow your technique to evolve over time. Let your technique change. As you go through things in your life, your technique will change. And so maybe for some of you, that's going to get more complicated and you're going to start doing more and more detail. Maybe some of you, you're going to simplify. As you as a human being change, your technique is going to change over time, and allow it to change. So as I talk about that, I was talking about Marv, and so Marv's known for his multi-figures. And by the way, if you haven't seen a lot of his multi-figures, you need to be humbled and go look them up. It's good for us as artists to be humbled. I do it all the time. If I get too full of myself, I go look at some of Marv's work and I say, oh, okay, I see where I sit. And so look at some of his multi-figure work. He did it for a long time. That's what people wanted to see. That's what they were asking for. That's what they're featuring. And then he got off into some stylized things where he was doing some stylized heads, some masks, and he was playing with stains. And people were kind of, what's he doing? Why is he off? He's off on a tangent. No, he's expanding. He's changing. He's evolving. And that's what we do as artists. So allow yourself to evolve. One more, and I've got this. This is for everybody here. Wood carving, and I don't want to take away from anybody who does wood carving professionally, because there's some people that do it and it's incredible. Wood carving, in my opinion, is one of the best hobbies that you could ever have or that you could ever do. There is a lot of merit in leaving it a hobby. And, we all, in everything we do, you think, man, if I could do it professionally, if I could do it all full time, that would be nirvana. You know what? It's not nirvana. It's not. You ask any professional wood carver, you ask anybody who's traveling the country teaching, watch how hard these guys work, they work so hard. My buddy Floyd Radigan, he's on the road like 364 and a half out of 365 days, developing all sorts of new projects, working so hard, teaching. If you have the ability to keep wood carving a hobby and keep it pure and keep the joy pure, I would say do it, because you get to carve whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. Nobody can tell you what to do. You can carve, if you're enjoying carving Santas that have a quirky look or whatever, then you get to do it. And nobody can say that's not going to sell. I really don't care. I'm having a blast doing it. So for me, it's the ultimate hobby, because you can do it how you want it. Think and think long and hard before you decide to make a profession out of wood carving, because you could just destroy the best thing in your life, which is an incredible hobby that you enjoy. And I know I've dabbled in it a little bit, and when I do it, I find all of a sudden I've lost a little bit of the joy of carving. Well, that's because I've done too much of the other stuff. So anyway, and again, nothing against professional wood carvers. As a matter of fact, I'll bet you almost all of them would agree with me that anytime you do anything professionally, you do a little bit more of it than you really want to be doing. You're doing what you're doing, and then you're doing just another 20 hours a week of it. That's what being a professional is. You have to, there's probably a lot of you in the audience that have taken a commissioned job, and somebody said, I will pay you this much money to do this. And you say, okay, that's what a professional does. I'm going to take a commission job. Well, then it sucks, because then you got this commission, and anytime you want to carve something, you've got this commission breathing down your neck. Oh crap, I still got to carve that. Got to carve that. That's why I dropped out of art school. When I was told you got to do this at this time, I couldn't do it. So there's some of my advice to young carvers. What else you got there, Blake?
Those are great tips, Ryan. You're known for female carvings, and somebody wants to know what you think the difference is between carving a female and a male, and where do you get your ideas from carving from?
Okay. we could talk about carving females. Hey, can you tell me how many females we have in the room right now, Blake? I guess I need to know how to direct. If we got more than 30% female, I gotta to taper my comments down a little bit.
Well, there's no way to tell, but we've got 96 people on right now. So 96.
Okay. I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. So female carving. I'm gonna read some. This guy, Harold Inlow, the man. I mean, Harold Inlow, the man. I tell you, one of the greatest afternoons I've been able to have. We were in, where were we? Branson, Missouri. That was just a couple years ago. I had never met Harold Inlow, so I was starstruck. I mean, it's Harold Inlow. I was starstruck, and talked to him for 30 seconds, and I realized, oh my gosh, this guy is a teacher. Well, he did it for a lot of years, but in my definition, the ultimate teacher is able to quickly pinpoint where a student is and figure out the hurdle between that student being good and great, and figure out where those things are. And the true teacher helps that student to just make those connections at a right time. Teaching, and I am a full-time teacher. Teaching is not just filling people with information. Teaching is helping students make connections. And so Harold said, well, let's meet and let's sit down and talk. And so I sat down with Harold, and we went and met at the Engler studio, which, by the way, if you have not been to the Engler studio, sell however many carvings or tools, whatever you need to get to be there. That place, it is inspiring. Sitting with Harold Inlow in Engler studio, probably, I don't know, within an hour of Dog Patch, where he started and made it as big as a wood carver. But he sat down and talked about female faces. Oh, I found it here. It's story time, boys and girls. I'm going to read for you. This is what Harold says about carving female faces. A beautiful woman's face intimidates many carvers. The perception is that it's easier to carve a man's face or an ugly woman's face. But if you take your time, it's just as easy to carve a beautiful woman's face as it is to carve any other face. Bull crap. That is not Harold. And when Harold says take your time, I think he means take 10 or 15 years. For him, it is. I read that a couple times, and I got, and the reason you see, I'm a little bit, it's a little bit emotionally driven, because I decided I'm going to take a year and I'm going to learn to carve females. It was a hard year for my wood carving. That year was a struggle, because I had to learn so many things to even be able to do that. It reminds me of, I went golfing with my brother, and he had a driver, and he would drive these balls like 200 yards, and I would hit it like, if I could get it 100 yards, I was happy. And I'd say, how are you doing that? And he'd say, hey, you just got to relax. Your swing, you're trying too hard. You're trying too hard with the swing. You got to go, it's got to be a smooth swing. Well, oh yeah. And he had years and years of studying with people, teaching him how to golf. And he had struggled with it and grappled with it for years and years and years. And then he remembered, yeah, it's easy now. It takes a while. And in my opinion, it's more difficult to carve a female face than a male face. And I'm going to tell you some of the reasons why. One of the big reasons I feel it's more difficult to carve a female face than a male face is that a female face is all about the curve, man. And a female figure is all about the curve. Female face and figure is all about the curve. I'm going to get one of my girls here. Let's do this girl. So this one here, and I hope you can see. So it's all about the curve. You are, by the very nature of the medium of wood, in my opinion, you're fighting the medium. The medium of wood lends itself to chips and knives. You look at this knife right here. This knife's got a flat blade. Okay. Well, you've got to translate this to curves. You got to translate this. You got one of my art instructors in college says you want to learn to draw females, you got to learn to master the curve. So as a wood carver, you want to learn to carve females, you've got to learn to master the curve. And so at first you think, well, then I'll just use bigger gouges. Yeah, you can use bigger gouges and that helps. But when it all comes down to it, my friends, mastering the curve is all about learning to roll that knife. It's about getting the dexterity to be able to just roll that knife and create features. Because if she has a bunch of chips on her face, it looks like acne. Looks like she's got acne scars, and it detracts from her beauty. So mastering the curve in wood carving is learning to roll that knife, and you've got to learn what planes you can make that work on a female. So, and in my class, by the way, we're going to go into depth in this. I'm teaching a wood carving class, and it's January. It's the second and third weekends in January. And I'm going to be teaching a lot of this stuff. Quick commercial, just a second. I'll get you, we're going to have a quick shameless plug. This is what we're going to be working on. Okay. So this is, by the way, we had one of the Facebook viewers in Facebook land. He labeled this the barrel of fun, which you see they're in a hot, you can kind of see they're in a hot tub here. Anyway, we're starting. So originally we were going to start with this. Originally we were going to start with this blonde girl, and we still are. But I've had so many people that say, I want to do the whole scene. I can't fit the whole scene in one session, but I have decided I'm going to fit both of these ladies in one. We're going to do 2 days on the blonde, 2 days on the brunette, and we're going to do both in the one session. So if you signed up for the session already, congratulations. As a bonus, we're going to do both busts. They're both shaped similarly. And also with that, if you sign up by Sunday night, if you sign up for the class by Sunday night, this right here, a go by, I'm putting your name in a little, I'm going to draw some names. Whoever wins, I'm going to send you this little go by. I carved her to practice. So that's by Sunday night. Sign up by Sunday night. Anyway, back to females. Just a few. We'll talk about this a lot in the class, but first of all, female, narrower chin, more slight chin. Okay, the male brow tends to protrude further out than a female brow. Males tend to have an indentation on the brow here, where females tend to not. Females are rounded here at the bulb of the nose, where males tend to be a little bit more squared off. Females have smaller necks. Females generally have a little larger eyes. Females, generally, you avoid this sunken cheek as it relates to wood carving. In my opinion, I like to hide wood grain on females. I feel like wood grain kills beauty. Also, in my opinion, I don't like to antique females because I like the clean look, and antiquing kind of fights that. Those are some of the big differences. But really, the thing that I think hangs people up and where they get lost is they start carving these female faces, or they start carving female faces after they've carved 1 million male faces, and they don't leave room for hair. And so they're carving this, and then they don't understand hair. So you've got to learn how to leave plenty of room for hair. Those are some of the big differences. So wood carving females, in my opinion, who's really out there that really does it. I love Marv's sophisticated females. Dave's killing it with his females. And I would say 50% of what I've learned came directly from him. If you look at Harold Inlow, and his females, he's got, my wife Amy just came in the room. So, hey, if you look at Harold Inlow and his females, they got better and better. You look like his early dog patch characters, they were pretty good, but you look at some of his later females, like his Amber Sparks, his females are incredible. Vicky Bishop is just does some great females. I'm sure I've missed a few of them that do females. But anyway, there's some guys that are doing it. Not everybody likes it. Not everybody enjoys it. And it's a challenge. You got to be up for a challenge. If you decide you want to do it, I can guarantee you it'll make the rest of your carvings better. When you get to the other side of learning to do it, your wood carving is going to be that much better, but it's going to be frustrating to you. I hope that kind of answered that question. What else you got, Blake?
So talk a little bit about how you develop your characters. Do you start off with paper, then clay? What do you do as far as doing that?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to back up just in that question. I'm going to back up just a little bit. And I have so many wood carvers, probably 80% of them say, I'm really great at taking a rough out and being able to do it. But it's really difficult for me to do something from scratch, or to start something from scratch. And that's that creativity piece. That's when, so if you want to be an artist, if you truly want to be an artist, and not everybody wants that. You got to decide, do I want that? If you want to be an artist, you got to create your own stuff. Okay. You got to create your own stuff. I'm going to throw out a quote right now that goes along with this. The level of, wait just a second here. The level of uniqueness of an artist and the level of creativity is directly proportional to the obscurity of the source. The level of creativity of an artist is directly proportional to the obscurity of the source. If your source is carving a rough out from a class, just like the teachers, that's your creativity. That's your level of creativity. It's not very obscure. If you can bring in an obscure source, then you become creative. Now, you look at any great artist, they've got sources. We've got sources. We're inspired by stuff. We don't come up, I'm not calling myself a great artist, but a great artist doesn't come up with their stuff just out of thin air. They're inspired. So the level of creativity is directly proportional to the obscurity of your source. So find some obscure sources, bring them in, stop inbreeding. Bring in some obscure sources to this art form and create and take it to the next level. That's a plea. That's a challenge. Please do it. Anyway, okay. How do I create? So first of all, my wife yells at me for saying your carving isn't saying anything. That carving's got to say something. So I want to create something that is going to say something. Create a carving that's going to say something. I'm trying to look, see if I've got a carving here that says something. I've got one. So let's talk about just this. It's simple. She's just simple, just a simple little librarian. Okay. And let's talk about it. So creating this character, you would think it's not a big deal, but look at this little foot right here. Do you see how it's kind of turned in and kind of buckling? That says something. I mean, you look at that and You look at that from back there, that's saying something. Look at her little back there. Okay. She's carried these books for a lot of years. That's saying something. Look at this long neck, kind of leaning forward, but it's still fairly vertical. It's saying something. The way she's holding the books. Look what she's wearing. Look at her conservative clothing. Then look at her hairstyle. It's all got to be saying something. When I create, it's not an accident. I don't just say, I'm going to do this. Well, if I want to carve something unique, I got to know, okay, she's an 83-year-old librarian. This is the end of the week. She's carrying these books back to collections. And so I create something specific and unique. And I start there. Then I start with drawings and sketches. I go from drawings and sketches. And then every creation is different. Sometimes I'll sculpt them in clay, and sometimes I will use miniatures, and sometimes I just go for it. It depends on how it feels. Remember, I'm an amateur, so I get to do whatever the heck I want. I could spend 3 days doing her, or I could spend a month doing her. And so I'm going to try something new. This time, I'm going to draw her out on some wood, and I'm just going to start carving. So with her, that's what I did. I drew some pictures, I drew her out, and I started carving. This was my first attempt at her, and I liked it. So every design is going to be unique and interesting. You've got to get to where you are able to design on your own. You've got to get to where you're able to create on I shouldn't say you've got to. You don't have to do anything. But if you want to be an artist, you've got to create your own stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that makes sense. What else you got, Blake? You there? Is anybody there?
Can you hear me, Ryan?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your painting and finishing process, and what do you do to finish your carvings?
Okay. Painting and finishing. First of all, half the joy for me, Blake, is experimenting. Half the joy is trying new stuff. So I'm not one that's going to get one process and going to stay there all the time. So I've got a bunch of different ways and a bunch of different things that I do. Sometimes it involves boiled linseed oil. Let me show you a few different things. This would kind of answer your question. I've got, let's go with this. One of my favorite carvings I've ever done. And I love it because of the movement in all directions and all ways. Simplicity. He's a banjo player, but look how he's standing. I mean, that's how this banjo player would stand. I mean, and so with him, dipped him in boiled linseed oil and then light washes of acrylics. That was it. And this carving doesn't look the same as it looked when I did it 8 years ago. It's yellowed. So if you're going to dip it in boiled linseed oil, you better be okay with that, because it's going to happen. And same thing here. This is the one that won the National Caricature Carvers of America competition. And it's just an opera singer. It's a pretty substantial. Dipped him in boiled linseed oil, thin washes of acrylics, no antiquing. I'm not a huge fan of antiquing. I think people screw up so many carvings antiquing. If you're really good at it, if you're Chris Hammock, you can antique. I mean, he's a master at antiquing. He's been doing it a long time. I bet you screwed up a lot of carvings getting to be that good at it. So you got to know what you're doing when you're antiquing. Another one, this one was in a book called Still Fits. and you got some problems going on there. But this boiled linseed oil, light washes of acrylic over top of it. So that's one way. But that's going to change over time. This is another one. This is another, this wood carving. This one is, I got to give you a parental advisory on this one. This one is called Codpiece in the Park. And this one is based on those crazy Shakespearean actors that go in the park. They're not crazy, but they go in the park and do their thing. And the codpiece was it was real. I mean, in those times, it was a definite part of the Shakespeare outfit. This is the codpiece right here. And it was definitely a part of the Shakespeare outfit. this one's called Codpiece of the Park. First, I put on mineral oil, and then I put light washes, and then on top of that, I put a Minwax. I put a Minwax paste wax over top of it. Got kind of a cool look. I liked it. I did the exact same thing. Got into that phase with this guy. This guy is called Gluteus Maximus. And that's mineral oil first, sealing it. And then over top of the mineral oil, thin washes of acrylics, followed by Minwax paste wax. And then this guy I did recently. I don't know if any of you recognize him. But this one I did burnt sienna. I did a burnt sienna, pretty heavy. And then I did on top of that skin tone. It took a few coats to cover up the dark burnt sienna. And then that's just got the paste wax on top of it. So lots of different things. Sometimes I'll use polyurethane. Sometimes I'll use lacquer. In my opinion, a sealer is a sealer. Some use Krylon. Basically, you're putting paint on it and you're sealing it with something. Almost always. There's some carvers that don't seal things, but it's almost always thin washes of paint and sealer. And create your own style, create, experiment. That's half the fun. Play. And I
got a question.
What? Go ahead.
When you're doing linseed oil or the mineral oil, do you have to finish the painting all at one time, or can you do it over a couple days?
For a long time, I thought, well, I've got to put it on. I put the linseed oil on, and I got to paint it while it was wet. But then I was doing it. Something came up, and I let it dry, and then I was able to come back later and do it. So the answer is you don't have to finish it all at one time. And I'll tell you, as a teacher, the way you're going to figure out and really learn is by screwing stuff up. I have my motto in my classroom is he who never fails. He who makes no mistakes, he or she who makes no mistakes never makes anything. You want to learn quickly, then allow yourself to make mistakes, allow yourself to fail. And that's how you're going to learn quickly. And same thing with finishes. Like I had probably about 6 months ago, I did a carving, and then I dipped it in, I antiqued it, and I hated the way it turned out. And I said, that's it. I'm not doing that anymore. And that's how I learned. I went down that road and thought that road's not for me. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a question. Are you a clean carver like Dave was describing, or are you somebody that has to go back and clean things up afterwards?
Depends on what I want, it depends on where I'm doing, I think that my carvings are fairly clean. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you some different examples. So here's a wood carving that I did, and I thought I wanted to do just a flat plane something. This is from a Janet Cordell rough out that I've kind of changed up and put a raincoat on her, and I'm going to probably paint it, but I wanted just clean. I wanted big planes, and I wanted totally clean. So I used mostly a blade, and then I did her pretty clean. But then I've got some carvings that that are going to be not clean. But I will answer this. I know when it is time. I have a really great awareness of when a cut I'm doing is going to be my finished cut. And if a cut I'm going to do right now is my finished cut, I make sure that I darn well know where the point of my blade is. And I make sure that it lines up with the other cut with the point of my blade, and they come to the right spot. That's what makes it clean. The other thing is I don't want to mess around with finishing up a carving and then having to go clean it up, because that sucks and it's boring. A lot of people say, wow, what finish are you putting on your carvings? How do you get it so clean? I carve as I go along. So my goal is to be a really clean carver, but the problem is you have to temper that with staying loose. So as a carver, you got to stay loose. Look at Emile Janelle's carvings, man. They ain't clean. They are rough. Dave turned me on to this guy, and then I think Floyd sold me this. Floyd sold me this book. This is Floyd Bradigan sold me this book, and it's I mean, you look at Emil's carvings. They're rough, man. They're meant to be viewed from 10 feet back or 15 feet back. So what do you want? What do you want? I mean, you decide how you want your carvings to look. There's a carver right out there right now. He's probably one of the cleanest carvers, Overby. He might be on here. He's the Dry Creek carver. His stuff is clean. That you get that way from doing that for years. But it's a choice. I guess my answer is I decide how clean I want it to be, or what kind of fun I want to have.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Dan Sloan here. I was just wondering, what kind of ratio do you have between using rough outs or starting with blocks?
Okay. So here's my opinion on that. First of all, rough outs I use when I don't want to think. So if I just want to sit down and just carve, I've got some rough outs that I'll grab. Matter of fact, here's one that I did. See if I can find it. Here's what I did the other day. And Dave, you'll probably recognize this. Dave and I traded rough outs on this. Where were we, Dave? I can't remember where we were. And I gave him a couple of mine. He gave him a couple of his. This is Dave's rough out. And I just grabbed it and said, I don't want to think. I want to just have fun. And so I did. And that's, yeah, go ahead. Maquoketa. Yes. We're in Maquoketa, Iowa. Yes. And so when I don't want to think, but when I'm doing rough outs, I've tried to get to the point where I'm carving something different when I do it, unless I'm doing a study, which I'm going to show you guys a study. This is a study of the great Phil Bishop. So I got this carving in the mail. I won an auction. I was ecstatic. This was Phil Bishop. He did probably in '99. So I would say this was probably the beginning of the height of his career. I mean, first of all, look at that. Look at those cuts. Just so much going on. And so I was so intrigued by it. I got it. I said, I'm doing that. So I did it right here. And this isn't something I go and sell as my own work or tout like I created this, but this is a study of, I said, I'm going to try to take what Phil's doing and kind of incorporate it. So that's why I would do a rough out. And that's why we do rough outs. If I go and I take a Gary Phelan class, I want to experiment with carving like Gary Phelan. So when you're working to absorb the artistry, in singing we call it the Schwung, which is German for energy, their energy, their essence. If you want to absorb an artist's essence, start with rough outs. That's great. Or if you don't want to think, start with the rough outs. Otherwise, I'll start with a block of wood.
Thanks, Ryan.
Absolutely. Anybody
Here's
else?
Another question for you, Ryan.
Go ahead.
Any upcoming projects for the CCA? And then who are the next up and coming beginner carvers that you've noticed out in the carving community?
Oh, okay. First of all, any upcoming projects? So one of our big projects and one of what we've decided to do in the Character Carvers of America, we've tried to be present at a lot of the wood carving shows around the country. So that's become one of our emphases is to be there, to be present. So we've tried to do that, which has really enhanced what we've been trying to do. Another big project is the competition that we do. And that's a yearly thing. And we're currently in talks of deciding whether we want to have that happen this summer or not. I'm hoping we are, but we'll let you all know. That's another project. We just did an ornament exchange. It was kind of an inside project where we're always talking about books. Books take a few years to do. As I can't remember if we have anything right now, but if we do, it's not right on the tip of my mind. And then answering your second question there, Blake, up and coming wood carvers. And when we're talking a young wood carver, we're probably talking somebody younger than 50. No, I'm just kidding. We are older when we carve. So I was watching, I saw a YouTube video of a young man. His name's James Miller. And I think James was on here. I think he did this class. This was a grinning Santa. It only has 858 views, but it is this grinning Santa. It's a Santa that's got a big, huge smile and these. I mean, if you get a chance, just not right now because I want you to finish watching this, but YouTube James Miller grinning Santa. I saw that thing. I was so intrigued. I saw genius in it, and then I started looking at some of his other work. He's got a website. And I see genius in his work, not only in his carving, but in his painting. Unique approach to painting. He's putting a dark gray on, and then he's putting lighter washes on top of that. It gets a really unique look, unique thinker, unique combination of flat plane and others. So James Miller, I don't even know him, but just watching, I see some genius in there. Another one I'm going to give a shout out to, and I'm Tony Folletti. He's probably on here. Are you out there, Tony? He's usually on here. This is a little bust given to me by a guy named Robert Lucci. And I saw this and I had to have it. And I told him I got to have it. But he's done some other stuff that is just he'll decide whether he wants to really get into it or not. But if you're talking like raw talent, I would say he's one that's just some really raw talent. And then there's some people that are exceptionally driven. And when I look at somebody that's great, I look at not only where they are, but the trajectory. An artist, there's where they are, but there's also trajectory. That is by how driven are they? How many hours are they spending carving? So you figure as a hobbyist, you're spending 10 hours a week wood carving, 10 hours a week. In 20 years, at 10 hours a week, you can reach 10,000 hours. They say 10,000 hours, something happens there, and then you become an expert. And I think there's something to the 10,000 hours. I can remember when I hit 10,000 hours, it started to feel a little different. If you're doing it 20 hours a week, you can hit 10,000 hours in 10 years. If you're doing 40 hours a week, you can hit 10,000 hours in 5 years. A couple of carvers that are going to hit that pretty quick if they haven't already. One she gave a class. Her name's Sarah Barkaloff. She lives not far from me in Utah. Up and comer. She's got there's some articles in Wood Carving magazine. She does some great stuff. I've been helping her or getting her interested in Marv's book and Marv's things. Really just up and comer, just really great carver. If you get a chance to buy some of her things, do it, because she's a great carver. And then one more, I think he's the youngest member in Caricature Carvers of America. Dwayne Gosnell is driven. I think probably the most driven artists, one of the most driven artists I know. And when I see somebody driven, you got driven, and then you got a lot of years to do it. I see a crazy amount of potential because it's trajectory. So there's some names of some young carvers that I've noticed.
And one last question I've got, and then we'll open the floor for others. Carving fine details like glasses. What do you do as far as doing that without breaking the wood?
That is carving fine details like that. It's all a frame of mind. It's all perspective. It's all paradigm. I was at one of the great things about there's a lot of great things about being in the CCA. For me, I am in there. We all have our reasons to be in there. The reason I'm there is to learn from these great wood carvers, not only great wood carvers, but great people. Can I just tell you, they are some of the best people around, and I've learned so much from them, just in wood carving, not only wood carving, in life. I got one story I'm going to tell you because I haven't told any stories. And then I'm going to talk about detail carving. Dave Boone, I don't know if you've seen his work. He's a brilliant wood carver. So funny, just an artist, an absolute artist. I think it was 2 years ago, we had a meeting, maybe 3, in Utah, in Midway, Utah. And we went up to this place where we could ride a chairlift together. And it's Sundance. It's like Robert Redford's, where Robert Redford does his movie festival at Sundance. And Robert Redford has a home there. And we were on this chairlift. So me and my wife were on one, and then he and his wife were on the one behind us. Well, he came up with this idea. He wanted me to tell everybody that Robert Redford was in the chairlift behind. And because he has a similar look to Robert Redford. And so the whole way up on this chairlift, I was telling everybody, Robert Redford's in the next chair back. And then he was waving to them like he was Robert Redford. And then we stopped halfway up the mountain. We got out, and Bruce Henn, another really great guy, was using one of the little porta potties. And Dave Boone and I were chucking rocks at the porta potty, and then we locked him in the porta potty. That just tells you about the type of guys that are in the Carriage Carvers of America. We just never, and gals. I mean, we've got some awesome gals in there. We just never grew up. None of us ever grew up, I think. I think we're probably all on Ritalin. I think we're probably just an incredible group of guys. But anyway, so, and one of those is Eldon Humphreys. Eldon Humphreys did this wood carving of this guy that had his fingers like this and was just, with these little dainty fingers in there. Here, I'm going to show you an Eldon Humphreys. If you don't know Eldon Humphreys, Tom, he carves up by you, Canadian carver. He gave me this little guy, but you look at those fingers. But he did a small little wood carving. This is Eldon. He just look, his pants have fallen down. Hilarious carver. I looked at his fingers and I was talking to Eldon about that, and he said it's all in your perspective. Just get small. Just say, we're going to get small. We're going to take our time, and then take your time. Look at this hand. So on this guy, I did this hand. I decided to do this hand separate, but those fingers are quite detailed. You got to be very aware of the wood grain direction. I decided to do this separate so that I could have wood grain, so it would be strong enough. And then, by the way, this arm, look how I did that. Drilled a hole here, and then I used a special bit so that they fit together. But just take your time. Be aware of wood grain and small chips. See that finger there? See those fingers? They're separate, but that it just took time. And be willing. Eyeglasses. Yeah. I don't have a guy with glasses, but take your time. You can use super glue to reinforce too. Some people will use super glue and put it on the wood to keep the wood strong. Yeah. Any other questions out there?
Hey, Ryan, I was wondering if you knew yet what was going to be the subject for your session at the Rocky Mountain Carvers Roundup, if it's held. Hopefully it will.
Out there in Midway, yeah. We were really sad we didn't get to carve it, but to do that, that's a really great thing that they've put together out there. My guess is I'm going to bring a number of rough outs when I come, and have some different options. One of my favorite teaching subjects. One of my favorite teaching subjects is just this little businessman, and he's been a really good teaching tool. He's all one piece. He's simple. They're one-day projects, so I'm going to keep them small. So my guess is probably something like that. I may bring. We'll see. I've done a lot of little things in some of those things because it's only a day. So sometimes I'll do like little miniature projects. So honestly, I haven't decided, but I found that people like to choose what they want to do. So that's probably what I'll do.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Ryan, I've got a question for you. Out of all of the people in the CCA, who do you feel like has influenced you the most? and probably one that inspired you the most.
Influenced me and inspired me. Well, there's that's a hard answer. That's because there are so many incredible carvers and incredible people. I guess that answer I could answer a lot of ways. One that I'm always looking to learn from, and not only from his work but from him, is Dave Stetson. I always look forward to my conversations because there's a two-way street happening there, and I would say my very best learning has happened from Dave, because if you haven't taken a class from him, he is willing to explain. He's willing to stop and explain. Where an artist and a teacher are not always the same thing. You can be a great artist and not be a great teacher. There's a lot of them out there, and there's a lot of great teachers that don't have great subject matter. He's a unicorn because he's got both. He's both a great artist, great teacher. So for inspiring my reaching for a high level and freeing myself up and carving with purpose and having something to make people laugh, it's got to be Chris Hammock. Learning how to take a piece of wood and bend it to my will and just have fun. It's got to be Mitch Cartledge, for learning how to carve incredible eyes and incredible features. Look at this little bust here. It's Gary Phelan. So I guess there's two different ways to answer that. One is I'm inspired by their work, but a lot of them I'm inspired by them as human beings. I got to take a drive across. Joe, you and I got to teach together in Carvers, Indiana, and we got to spend 3 hours in the car. And I became a better person for it, and a better wood carver with his explanation of the dentures and the mouth and all of that. So many of those guys inspire me. PJ is a really great carver, great friend. If I ever get out that way, I've got to see him and stay with him because he's just so fun, inspiring. And I don't want to leave him out, but there's a lot, I guess. I know that's kind of a tough answer to the question, but there's a lot.
Thank you.
Hey, Ryan, we had a question in the chat about go-to tools that you use, certain tools that you use mostly on all of your carving.
Okay. Yeah. So I first I got a question for you guys. And I hope nobody gets offended here. Are you a wood carver or are you a tool collector? And decide, because if you're a tool collector, that's cool. That's great. And collecting tools is really fun. That takes time. If you're a tool collector, then you're one who's willing to spend hours and hours on eBay looking up old chisels and restoring them and trying new, and then trading in all your flex cuts for drakes, then trading all your drakes in for files, and then trading all of your. I'm not a tool collector. I'm a wood carver. I want if I have 10 hours a week to spend. If I have 10 hours a week to spend on wood carving, I want to spend an hour a day with my, as Chris Hammock and Rich Weatherby call it, butt in seat time. Turning off my phone, turning off everything, sitting down and struggling with the wood, turning on some music and struggling with the wood. And that doesn't involve a lot of researching tools. That involves carving. I want to spend 15 minutes a day looking at inspiring works, maybe a Tom Richmond book or Pinterest or looking at other artists or looking at a fashion illustration book. You talk about the obscure sources, fashion illustration. Just I love looking at that. Makeup tutorials. Tutorials of how on YouTube, how they take the little dolls and will wipe off their face and repaint their eyes and saying, oh my gosh, things like that. 15 minutes a day. And then a little time on the weekend, a couple hours finishing up projects. That's how I say, and spending time. Notice there's not a lot of time there in collecting tools or reorganizing my workshop or learning to carve birds. I decided I'm gonna carve caricatures, and I'm gonna focus on it. And that's just me. That's just what I decided. You may love all of that, but I haven't spent a lot of time doing other things. I've got a laser focus. This is my toolbox here. Pretty much all of these tools have been either won in a competition, given to me, traded. I would say I have spent a total of maybe, I traded for the box. I got those, probably maybe a total of $300 on tools I've spent. This is the knife I'm using right now. I use it because it's sharp and it works. This knife carves just as good as this knife. This knife carves just as good as this knife. This knife carves just as good as this knife. They're sharp steel. They go through. So in my opinion, you got sharp steel. It's gonna do the job. So I will use knife 70%. Then I'll use this U-gouge. This is a Drake. I use it. I use some files. I use this big one here I got because it was on sale. Probably a piece of crap, but I've used it for 15 years. And it's the only one I have that size. And that's what I use because I'm too cheap to buy another one. Anyway, I've got a whole assortment of tools. If you ask me what my favorite palm gouges are, I'm probably going to say it's the files. I like the way they fit in my hands, and so that's what I use. But really, so that U-gouge, I got a little tiny V tool. I've got a little bigger V tool. I've got a little tiny U-gouge. So basically U-gouge, 4 different sizes, V tools, 3 different sizes. And then sometimes I'll break out my palm tools on when it's big and my mallet and go to town that way. Hope that answered your question.
All right, Ryan, we'll go ahead and open the floor up. If anybody else has any other questions, we're about 20 after 4 at this point.
Yeah.
Are you doing any other seminars next year? And where?
So, sorry, I just had to plug in my phone. So on the answer to seminars, I, again, am trying to keep this a hobby and trying to keep it something that I love to do. My long-term goal, I'm retiring from teaching high school choir in 14 years. After that, I want to teach full-time. I want to help carry on the tradition of a lot of these great carvers that I've been able to carve with. And I want to teach full-time for probably about 10 years. And I'll probably do that. Right now, my goal is to teach 3 to 4 seminars a year. And that's on max. I'm sitting at 2 to 3, but I want to increase that. But I'm looking for summer seminars. But I teach currently I teach yearly in Makokata, Iowa, in International Woodcarvers Congress. I'm just recently joined the Rocky Mountain Woodcarvers and we'll be teaching up in Midway. And then I teach, I'm going to be doing a class in Carvers, for the caricature carvers, not this coming summer, I think, but the next summer. I also am going to be teaching at Carve Fest. That's in Marv Kaisersad's backyard back there with Ivan Willock, the Carve Fest out there, and I'm going to be teaching at that. So those are some of my main venues. I love teaching. I love it, and I learn a lot when I'm teaching. I just want to. I don't want to overwork because I'm also a full-time choir teacher. So if you can get out to any of those, our classes are great, and there's been a lot of people that really enjoy. As you probably noticed talking with me, my take on things is a little bit unique, a little bit fresh, and people seem to like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anybody else today? All right, Ryan. Well, we'll go ahead and stop you here.
Wait, hold on a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
to leave, can you sing us a Christmas tune? An opera, Christmas tune. That ought to get us into the holiday spirit.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
Whatever is a favorite of yours.
Well, my voice is a little tired from a long week of teaching high school choir, but I'll sing the beginning of my all-time favorite Christmas tune. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. I'll stop there. I've got more, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Fantastic, Ryan.
I would like to personally say thank you. Your passion in life, your singing and your carving all comes through. And I'm pretty crazy in my personality too. So you know what? You're freeing me up even more. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That's absolutely, that made my day. If anybody's ever done this, it's tough to sit here and look at a phone and to have human interaction, but that really actually helped. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Very inspirational. Thanks again for coming on and spending your time with us. Thanks for all you do for the carving community. And just want to remind everybody that Ryan will be teaching starting in January. So if you're interested in signing up for his class, reach out to him. We'll put his email address and stuff out on the video so everybody knows how to get a hold of him. But make sure you tune in with Ryan and get on
Blake,
his class. Hey, yeah.
I've got one more thing. So another thing that I'm pretty excited about is a wood carving academy. And I probably interrupted you because you were going to probably talk about that. But if you want to sign up for my class, you can go. That's where you go. You can either go to the Wood Carving Academy, and he's got Yaron's got my email there. And then there's a lot of different workshops there. And then also I just did, and I'm going to put more on there. This little guy. This little maintenance man, he's like a little 45-minute thing that you carve, a little simple, and he's all with a knife, 100% with a knife. So I put something on there. I'm going to put I got a few more in the works. Woodcarvingacademy.com. That's a blast. So sorry to interrupt you, Blake.
No, you're fine. I appreciate that. I was getting ready to tell everybody that, so I appreciate it. Don't forget other classes that are available. You can get online with Chris Hammock, do design and caricature carving with him. Kevin Applegate will have a class that's coming up next year. And again, Dave Stetson's doing a Mel Bus class now. He's going to do another class, a fiddle player rough out class coming up. So he'll be talking about that later. Again, join us next week. We will be talking about tool maintenance and sharpening and doing special giveaways. So make sure you join us next week. You have to be present to be a part of the giveaway. So make sure you join us then. And again, Ryan, thank you for all you do, and join us again next week. We'll see you then.